pretty straightforward. We are going to use the law of sines. To solve non-right triangles. We already know how to solve right triangles. That's what we did day 1 of this unit. So now we're looking at solving non-right triangles. Remember, Pythagorean theorem is off the table. Okay, off the table. In the box here, you see the law of sines, which you guys all just developed on your own. One thing I want to point out one more time, and this picture is nice and color-coded for you. The angle is opposite the side length. Okay? The angle is opposite the side length. The angle is opposite the side length. So make sure that you are grouping angle and the opposite side. All right, your directions are going to be to solve triangle ABC. Give answers to the nearest tenth if you need to round. The first thing that I am going to do is go ahead and sketch a picture. Once you get into this a little bit, you may not need a picture, but just getting ourselves started, I would like us to kind of sketch this out to see what we have. Also going to fill in all of the information that we're given. All right, so what I have given you is the measures of 2 of your angles and then just 1 side length. So think back to when we solved right triangles. Trick I told you, whatever you have 2 of, start off by finding the third. So this one's kind of the easier example because if I give you 2 angle measures, how can we find the third right away? They all add up to 180. So the measure of angle C would be 180 minus the 43 minus the 52. And that should be 85. Go ahead and fill that in your picture. If this were a right triangle, what you guys would do is you would take, let's say, sine, cosine, tangent of one of the angles and set up your ratio and solve. Cannot do that because this is not a right triangle, okay? The trig that we have been doing up to this point applies to right triangles only. So what we need to do here is use our law of sines. Start with what you're using, and then we'll just go through and fill in everything that we know. Remember that the capital letters are angle measures, so your angles A, B, and C are going to go on top. Side lengths go down on the bottom. So we should have sine of 43 degrees over A equals sine of 52 degrees over 20 equals sine of 85 degrees over C. All right. If I cover up this, if I cover up that sine of 85 degrees over C, what does the rest of that look like? A proportion, exactly. So what you're going to do is just that. You're going to ignore the one on the left. You're going to treat this as a proportion to solve for A. I'm running out of room. I'm going to jump up here a little bit. So when we cross multiply, I'll have A times the sine of 52 degrees equals 20 times the sine of 43 degrees. Our goal is to solve for A, so I'll divide both sides by the sine of 52 degrees. And then from here, it's just a matter of putting that in your calculator. So make sure that with your calculator, you are getting the 17.3 that we should. Okay, so what we are going to do at this point, we need to solve for C, so we'll cross multiply the other two. That gives me C times the sine of 52 equals 20 times the sine of 85. We will divide both sides by the sine of 52. And then enter that all in our calculators. Times the sine of 85 divided by the sine of 52 should be rounded to the 10th, 25.3. Okay, first thing that we wanted to do, take 20 degrees and 60 degrees from 180 to get the measure of angle B. I should probably write that out a little bit clearer. The measure of angle B is 100 degrees. Then set up your proportions. Sine of 20 degrees over 10 is equal to sine of 100 over B is equal to sine of 60 over C. Cross multiply the first two. We should be getting 28.8. For B, cross multiply the second two. We should be getting 25.3 for C. What we will look at next then is now we are going to be given just two side lengths and one angle measure. We will start the same way. Fill in your proportion with what you're given. At this point, if you feel like you don't need a picture, that's fine. If you feel like you still do, that's fine too. Just make sure that you're matching up angles with side lengths. So sine of 45 degrees over 5 is equal to sine of B over B, which is equal to sine of C over 4. So just substituting in everything that we're given. Now here's the problem. If you look at these first two ratios, what's the issue? We have two different unknowns. We can't cross multiply and solve anything there. So what we're going to think about doing is kind of ignoring the middle one for now and working with sine of 45 over 5 equal to sine of C over 4, because at that point then we just have the one unknown. So I'll go ahead and kind of pull those two down and rewrite that proportion to make it a little bit clearer. Notice here we're solving for an angle measure, so we're going to do something a little bit different. Still going to start off by solving for the variable by cross multiplying. So we'll have sine of angle C times 5 is equal to 4 times the sine of 45 degrees. Still solving for C, so I'll divide both sides by 5. Sine of angle C is equal to 4 times the sine of 45 degrees over 5. How do we solve for that variable? Take the inverse sine, exactly. So here's what we're going to do. If if you have your calculators, do this with me. We are first going to calculate this, the 4 times sine of 45 divided by 5. So do that on your calculator first. That should be 0.5656854249. Okay? That is what we want to take the inverse sine of. Now, you could spend all the time re-entering all of those digits, but there's a quicker way to do that. Those of you with the newer TI 83 Plus, there's an even quicker way to do it, but this will work for everyone. So what you want to do is keep that number in there. You are going to hit your second sign, which will bring up the inverse sign, and then hit second, and then your minus sign, which then when you hit the second button says answer, ANS. You see that? So you're doing the inverse sign of your answer, hit enter. So what that's doing is taking the inverse sign of that last answer that you had. Okay? And we should be getting 34.4 degrees. Okay, if you're not getting that, I'll help you with your calculators here in a moment. Okay? So angle C is 34.4 degrees. At that point, once you know two angle measures, you can go back to just subtracting that 34.4 and the 45 degrees from 180 to get the measure of angle B. So at that point, it goes a little bit quicker. And for angle B, that comes out to be 100.6 degrees. And then it's up to you which of these ratios you want to use to find finally the side length B. You could use the sine of 45 over 5, or you could use the sine of C over 4. It's completely up to you. I'm going to use the first two, just for no reason, just because they're first. Don't forget, though, that you now know the measure of angle B, so you can plug that in, and now you can cross multiply and solve.